Dear Rasha, it's wonderful to see you again, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you about the enduring work of Alnahda Society and the crucial role that private philanthropists and other nonprofit organizations within the Middle East and elsewhere really can play in support of initiatives focused on women empowerment and inclusion. Rasha Alturki is the CEO of Alnahda Society, which is a non-profit organization established in 1963, I believe, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that's dedicated to women's social and economic empowerment. The stated vision of Alnahda Society is for women to be effective partners in the long-term development of Saudi society. And before becoming the organization's CEO, Rasha Alturki served as the organization's chief product officer, I believe, for more than 3 years. Under her leadership, Alnahda obtained its official consultative status from the UN Economic and Social Council, the ECOSOC, in 2019. It was also appointed by royal decree to lead the Women 20 summit convened during the kingdom's recent G20 presidency. And outside of her work with Alnahda, Rasha was appointed in 2016 to the Board of Trustees of the Saudi Arabia Human Rights Commission. And she's also a founding board member of Cell A+, a women's professional network aimed at empowering professional women in Saudi Arabia. Dear Rasha, I'd like to begin with Alnahda Society, which is an organization really with a fascinating history and an increasingly important role to play in the evolution of Saudi society. For those viewers and listeners that are not familiar with it, could you begin by explaining what Alnahda Society is and how it goes about fulfilling its mission?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to speak. Alnahda, as you mentioned, was established in the early 1960s. It's the oldest organization in Riyadh and one of the two oldest organizations in Saudi Arabia. Interestingly enough, the earliest nonprofit organizations in Saudi Arabia were all established and run by women. And it has been a field in which women have been able to really flourish and to develop both the field and themselves. As you mentioned, we have always focused on making sure that women have a role and have impact on the development of their country and are true partners. How we have done so has changed over time according to women's unmet needs, according to local legislation, according to capabilities, both financial and human. And so really, the dedication has always been to the cause and less necessarily to the programming. The programming is only a tool. The project is only a tool. The end goal is what we all work towards. And therefore, it's important. I always say we have to remain nimble. We have to remain dynamic and not get stuck in our ways, but rather try to always see, better ways of achieving the end goal. Currently, our focus is purely on women's socio-economic empowerment. We do so in 3 ways. We have our historic programs or field that we have worked in since the beginning, and which is usually associated with nonprofit or, let's say, charitable organizations. And that is our development programming. And also we work in research and in advocacy. With our development programming, we focus on looking at developing on a grassroots level, in a holistic fashion, female-headed households. And it's our belief that if you solve for the less fortunate, who don't have the financial means to solve their issues is if you solve for their systemic problems, if you solve for their development problems, and you find solutions for them, then you are finding solutions for women on all levels. Some women might be able to afford to get out of certain issues or problems because they're able to pay for a lawyer or pay for a teacher or pay for something like that. But for those who don't have that, then how is the system working for them? And how are they able to develop themselves and their families? And so that's what we do with regards to development programming. And we focus mostly on social and financial support, skill building, and on employment readiness, and mostly college and career counseling for the younger generation. Our aim is to break this cycle of poverty, and in order to make sure that it's not inherited from one generation to another. With regards to research, we look both at monitoring and evaluating our programs, improving our programs based on that. But then we also see research as a tool. We create original research as a tool for our third for increasing the body of knowledge, which is very sparse in the field, especially in Saudi Arabia, but then also to work as a tool for our advocacy. We have worked in advocacy for a very long time from the beginning, but we didn't work in it in such a clear fashion, in the sense that we work in advocacy. You're just like, oh no, please help this person or that person. But now we're really focusing it more in a systematic way, with goals and with armed with research, so that it's evidence-based and not just feelings-based. And so working all those three together, all those three fields together, we hope will push the cause forward and will lead to more systemic change in the future.
Now, I like how you've identified those three tracks as really as tools, as you said, the sort of program work, the research work, as well as, of course, the advocacy work, all towards that central mission that you referred to. How would you describe the current state of the nonprofit landscape in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or even the Gulf region more broadly? How is it changing? And what advice would you give to individuals that might be interested in engaging in philanthropy or nonprofit work in the region, either on their own or in collaboration with organizations like your own?
First, I think it's changing. I'll speak mostly to Saudi Arabia because that's my experience, but I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the Gulf is experiencing similar changes. I think it's definitely maturing. I think it's maturing in the sense that in many ways, but let's say for one way, I think that it's growing in size. The number has been increasing, and with that comes competition. With competition comes growth, and so forth. As well as it's come from above and below. So I think with Vision 2030, there is an extreme push there's an appreciation of the nonprofit sector, and there has been a push for it to be more productive and for it to increasingly assist in the country's development. I think also it used to be that you can only get licenses as a jam'iyya or an organization such as ours, a society model under the Ministry of Social Development. But now there are new forms and new ways in which the nonprofit sector can develop, and that's in another form called, which is endowed companies or sharikat waqfiyya. And that's something very new. And I think it's opened up a new way for both people wanting to work within the nonprofit sector, but even more so for philanthropists. It's a new way for them to set up organizations that will fulfill and achieve their philanthropic goals, sort of creating an endowment and then creating the company which will fulfill those objectives. And so I think this opening up gives more options to people, that has encouraged a lot of people to enter the field. I know that some people who worked in companies and considered it a nonprofit, but didn't have a model or didn't have a structure with which to establish it as a nonprofit, were just telling everybody that we are nonprofit, but they didn't have the actual licensing. So now with this, there are organizations or companies that have moved to this and have created endowments and then set it up as endowed companies, which in other areas are just called nonprofit companies or organizations. And so this has been a real boost to the sector. I think also there has been a shift also in funds, also from generation to generation. And I'm finding that the new generation of those who have inherited large sums of money are preferring to go the endowment route, are preferring to professionalize their giving, to systematize their giving, and to make sure that they are working towards very clear goals that are important to them and that they value. I'm also finding that there is a general, in addition to just Islamic responsibility of paying the zakat, there is more of an understanding of the need for social impact, the need for people to participate within their society and to give to their society, whether that be in time or money. And I think also the ESG requirements for the listed companies is also really affecting and boosting the sector and bringing in new people who might not have been as active in the past. So I think all of these changes within society, changes within the structure, are all working towards strengthening and maturing the sector. My advice for people who would want to invest in this, I think, is advice for people who would want to invest in anything really and in any region. Get to choose the people, get to know the people who share your values. What are your values? What do you want to achieve? And find those people. And it's not just values where, oh, I just want to work on women or I want to work on the handicapped. No, they also have to share your values in life and share your values in sort of business values, so to speak, because in the end, it's a business as well. When it becomes an organization, it becomes a business and you have to treat it that way. And so I like the name of the series as The Business of Philanthropy. And I think not to treat it as a business is to underestimate its importance. So I think really it's shared values and shared goals, and also it's important with regards to Saudi Arabia in particular. It's important to look at the ratings of the organizations. The government does give governance ratings to different nonprofits, and I think checking those out is a good first step to it's Makin, which is the rating. And so I think that's a good first step for people who want to at least work with other organizations.
That's great. All great advice. Thank you. And talking about the trends from what you've said, and also from what I experience in other parts of the region, all positive, really, trends and shifts. So all going in the right direction, inshallah. What, in your opinion, is the most useful role that private philanthropists can play in support of women's social and economic participation, whether that's in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia specifically or elsewhere in the region? It's obviously not something that can be addressed with money alone. So how can strategic philanthropists maximize their chances of making a meaningful impact in this space?
I think there's two ways. I would say that one of the first ways doesn't require any money, and that's influence. No matter what your circle of influence is, whether it be small or whether it be large, whether it be, on the level of states or on the level of your family, everybody has influence. And I think if you work within your circles of influence to push the the message forward, to push the cause. I think that's very important, to make sure that even within your own organization that women are represented on every level. I think although it will not ensure it, it will go a long way to making achieving that goal. And so I think just being aware of your own surroundings and what happens within your own surroundings is important. Now, to the other subject of money, money is important. Money, unfortunately, is extremely important. And it's what helps empower organizations. And without proper funding, organizations cannot get proper staff, cannot get proper leadership. And this has become more and more acute for us. In Saudi Arabia, before, there weren't that many options for women. And so Nahda was always one of the first places that women started their career and started their journey. And so we had the best of the best. Women are now highly prized employees everywhere. And so we have to pay. We have to pay to get good female leadership. And so money does help. I think from an investor's perspective, I would highly recommend to investors and beseech them, I should say, to invest in the organization itself, to invest in those things that most people don't want to invest in. People, for example, people like to give us their zakat because we're professional, we're organized, we have a system, but then they don't want to pay for everything else that goes. They don't want to pay for the computer systems, they don't want to pay for our CRM systems, they don't want to pay for the social workers who have to actually find out if these people, should get the benefit from their zakat. And so it's really, really important, like any company, it's really important to invest in the people who are running the organizations, in the systems. And that's the only way you're going to get the kind of reporting that you as an investor want. That's the only way you're going to be able to know what's going on in the organization, because they will have the proper monitoring and reporting and assessment that is required by a savvy investor.
Absolutely. It's well known that Alnahda was founded by and continues to be led, of course, and run by women, including, of course, yourself as its CEO. To what extent do you think that the philanthropic sector has its own house in order, so to speak, in terms of gender equity and providing qualified women with meaningful opportunities to pursue their own careers and to fulfill their own potential? What advice would you give to young women considering embarking upon a career in the social sector?
I think there definitely is a role for women in the social sector. Traditionally, until 5 years ago, no, we were very separated, and any women that were in gender mixed organizations were in a sort of a bubble on their own, and they never really reached leadership positions. But I think that now, again, with the transfer of inheritance and great funds, as well as with the opening up of the opening up of Saudi Arabia to mixed gender working environments, I think there's a very strong role for women. I think there's a strong role both as on the board members and leaders and investors in the field, as well as people, actually professionals working in the field. And I think the thing that we need to understand is that the nonprofit sector is a sector that you can come in and out of, that you can bring skill sets from other work experiences into this sector and really be able to benefit them. And then you can move out. This is something that I think we still need to work on in Saudi Arabia and maybe in the Gulf, is this concept of moving from one sector to another, taking the skill sets that you have from one sector to another to enrich whatever environment you decide to choose to work in.
And as we begin to emerge from the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic, what issues do you think strategic philanthropists from the Middle East and North Africa region and also around the world should be turning their attention to, and why? And where do you think the greatest opportunities will be for philanthropists and nonprofit organizations and impact entrepreneurs to make the most meaningful impact in the years ahead?
So this is, what's the solution to all our woes? I think that really investing in educating for a creative mindset, right? Creative mindset on every single level, a creative mindset among those running organizations, among those benefiting from organizations, the programming itself. I think sort of pushing ourselves out of, I mean, Saudi Arabia is now very used to this, is pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, thinking in a different way, coming up with creative solutions. And I think investing, this is not necessary, this doesn't come necessarily by it's not a natural instinct among many. And I think some people need to be pushed, they need to be taught, they need to be given the correct environment in which they can push themselves forward. We've seen this with our beneficiaries, and sometimes when you give them the basic knowledge, the basic tools, and inspire them by stories of others and experiences of others or best practices other places, they are able to come up with the best solutions for themselves. And so really empowering that kind of thinking, empowering that kind of breaking the mold type thing. I think that's where more investment needs to happen on every level.
That's great advice. Rasha, you really are a role model, and the work that you do is so essential, not just from a social perspective, but also from an economic resilience perspective of our beloved region. It's been too long since we met in person, and I very much look forward to doing so again in the near future and to exploring more ways to collaborate in the years to come, inshallah. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.